Thank you. Welcome everyone to the August monthly meeting of the Warrandyte Council. I declare the meeting open. A call for apologies, and we have one from Councillor Derrick, I believe. And Councillor Higgins as well has indicated to me that he was not available. That is everyone accounted for. Is someone happy to move those apologies? Councillor Drews, Councillor Kinsey. With that, all those in favour? Yes, carried. Moving on to the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 28th of July. Someone happy to move those minutes to the active record? Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Second. Councillor Drews. Councillor Jackson.
I have nothing.
Any comments, questions, clarifications required on those minutes of the July council meeting? Being nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. I remind councillors of their obligations regarding disclosure of interest, if any of those needs to be noted. They will have been received by the General Manager. Moving on to item 5, there are no mirror minutes. Item 6, reports of the committees. The first of those is the Regional Showground Racecourse Committee, held Tuesday 2nd of August. Councillor Briggs will have you to move those minutes and the recommendation. Second, Councillor McCloskey. Councillor Drews.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, we had a good meeting, had a good roll up for that. Introduced our new manager of engineering and our infrastructure project manager to the group. The reports, the calendar of events, one thing that came out of that, there were very positive reports from competitors from the Gold Coast Carnival, how good the grounds were. So that's great to hear. Yeah. The project update on the whole project out there. The main talk was on the equestrian centre, discussions about the pathway around it, the kickboards and the watering system, which I think is still the pump installation is going to be done. The PA system was discussed because there are issues at the show that some of the areas weren't working, so I think came out again and had a look at all that, so I think it's been updated. The racecourse track issue, there was contaminated material put in the holes that were created from the races before, and unfortunately the races were called off because of that. So there's been discussions on the proper top dressing. It is going to be enclosed in the yard so that sand will not be contaminated. So should be done properly from now on, and I think New South Wales Racing came out and had a look at the new top dressing that was put in there and was happy with that job. So there'll be ongoing discussions with the race course committee itself with each race meeting to make sure things are right with that. One thing that came out too was a draft plan was shown to us at the meeting on maybe combining the men's and ladies' toilets in the ladies' area there, because the town services manager believes that just renovating those areas is going to cost a lot of money because of the infrastructure there. It's that old that they'd be better off demolishing and restarting all that. So that's a draft that's design is, but so it's going to be to consult to the committee about that.
Yeah. So that means demolishing both the men's and ladies and having one facility where the present ladies is that what?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it'll be a bigger area. Yeah. That's a draft concept.
And that'll go back to the committee and then for some discussion on how that might work.
Yeah. So I think that was about pretty well it. The adult riding's happy with the progress with the equestrian centre, getting it right, the pathways, and requested a gate to go in between on that western side so officials can go in and out there. So, yeah, so
Councillor Bruce, is there sand issue under control? Are they happy with the sand? They've made a decision?
yes,
Is that correct on the sand that they require?
yes. It still hasn't been put down yet. It's still ongoing, but they're happy to get it right. They'll still use the arena in the middle there until everything's done.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Walker and Councillor Howard.
Councillor, so if they actually use the equestrian centre, they can't because the sand's not down.
No, it's not ready yet. No, they've still got to finish off putting the base in. That's correct. Before they get to the sand.
I see that they're having having classes or whatever they do, but that's in the centre.
They're doing it still in the arena.
Let's have all the questions through the mayor, please. They're open conversation. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the misting system is near complete, just waiting for the pump setup. And what has to happen first is the concrete surround around plus the path, then the kick rail, tidy up of the base. We're actually trying to work out to fix up some stormwater issues with the base. And then that'll tidy up a layer of crusher dust, some bitumen, ray of crusher dust, then first 500 tonnes of sand, which gives you about 50 millimetres, with a stockpile of 300 tonnes sand that actually gets moved by the users back and forth to either give 50 mil or up to 80 mil thick. I think that the kick rail contractors are being engaged or just about to be engaged, but we have to make sure our concrete works around, because that's what the kick rail is on. We're working on 1.3 metre kick rail and then between 1600 and 1700 millimetre rail on top. Above that, it stops rollover with horses and cattle.
Thank you. So Councillor Taylor had a question, then Councillor White.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. A question that Councillor Drews, you've addressed the PA system down there. Reed show the 2 race meetings prior to the one that didn't happen. The main speaker in front of the callers tower hasn't been functioning properly. You can't hear the races, so anyone that's up when most of the crowd stands along the hill can't barely hear the race caller. So that's a concern. What my priority is it needs to get back to what happened years ago, at least probably 2 days prior to a race meeting is preferable, but everything's checked. So if there's a problem with PA, we've got a window of opportunity to correct it, or a problem with the race course. I don't think all the responsibility should lie on the Shire. I think Jockey Club has the responsibility as well, particularly track. That someone out there is walking that track, and that should never have happened. What happened last time, if that was checked the day before or 2 days before, it should have seen, gee, there's a problem here. Could have been rectified and saved a hell of a lot of embarrassment, which is going to take us a lot of time to get that kudos back, I think, and a reputation back to that race course. But I'd like to see those procedures put in place, in particular that speaker in front of the race course tower addressed and fixed before, particularly the next race meeting here, which is our main one, top the car. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I think maybe Benjamin was taking that down. Councillor Bruce might remind me, do we have a procedure pre-race meetings with the Jockey Club that our things are undertaken, or maybe Benjamin Services might have that information?
There are pre-user checklists for
Yes.
users that suppose this data will be used within.
And that involves the Jockey Club prior to a race meeting?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Right.
just a comment too through there. They're putting in the procedure that at this stage that Shire workers are the only ones that are allowed to touch that PA system because people have been fiddling with it. And there was some talk too that the users, if they don't use the microphone properly, it doesn't come over the speakers properly too. But it's in place that council are the only ones that are to use that. Yes, and there needs to be a box replaced. It hasn't yet. It was stolen a long time ago. That big black box hasn't been replaced, so that's something that needs to be.
Thank you, councillor Whiteley.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the previous showdown race course meetings, there was discussion re funding for Calliard, and they were on a time frame, and plans were supposed to be submitted to that up against the time frame that our general manager might be able to comment on. Was that discussed and resolved? Have we plans, and are we going to lose that grant because we're behind the time frame?
My knowledge, Mr Mayor, not at the present, is they're trying to extend out the time frame. We are waiting on relevant people to come up with the design.
Yes, no, thank
Mayor,
you.
I did neglect to mention that one. There were some plans shown to us at that meeting, draft on that. So it is starting to happen. There's a draft plan. Sorry,
Thank you.
I neglected to mention that one.
Thank you, councillor Lewis, for that information. Any further comments, questions regarding the showground racecourse committee meeting? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to meeting the UMR Waste Depot committee held on the 8th of August. We'll have to do that. Councillor Drews, happy to move it. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Drews.
Thanks, Mayor. The verbal report on the transfer station, nothing has moved forward with that. And the MLB asked to put in a new quote because of the increased costs of everything, and the town manager, services manager, has contacted other contractors to see if they'll put quotes in as well, and I gather there's been 2 quotes coming at this stage. So sorry, nothing's happening there at the moment. We went down and inspected the new excavator. Not that I know a lot about them, but it looked pretty good. It's pretty solid. It's got a great mesh piece around it for safety. And I think the only thing we still want to get is the grab for it. It's being serviced and it's pretty well nearly ready to go. So that's that one. And regarding the new days for the rubbish and garbage collection, there's been mail drops, and manager of health's going to be contacting a few people, going face to face to discuss the new arrangements. There was a fire out at the facility. The EPA was contacted pretty promptly on that. I don't know how that one started, but unfortunately the cameras, the batteries were flat, so there's nothing on those. So they're looking into upgrading those at the moment. And we still haven't had the green waste done yet, but the rain has put that off and is in the pipeline. And we did discuss about recycling again. There's a few things like the rugby where there's a massive amount of cans and things that are just overflowing rubbish bins, and we're going to look at maybe talking to some of the sporting groups to see if we can do something about recycling. So that's the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Roy.
Through you, Mr Mayor, for the committee, are we any closer to having drum muster at the facility? I mean, it's something we've been talking about for a long time, but there's an opportunity there to collect drums off farms and those sorts of things. That's difficult to do otherwise.
I'll defer that one to.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll take that on notice and revisit that.
Okay, can we have that reported next committee meeting, if you don't mind? This has been looking around and around circles on drum muster. I've been approached several years ago about how easy they would pay for everything, to set up the cage, the whole lot. We just need to engage with them.
Thank you, Councillor Roy. Councillor Walker.
Really, Mr Mayor, I do believe the last meeting the drum muster did turn up. When was it? They had turned up to hold a day and it was advertised.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Drum Muster do a collection service. I believe it's out at Red Hill. Yeah, so I think Councillor Brewer is trying to get it relocated to the waste facilities, I think, where it's coming from.
Through
So
Mr
we
Mayor.
are provided with a service with Drum Muster. It's just, I think it's regarding the location of the site.
Go through Mr Mayor, a more permanent fixture at UMR Waste.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the UMR Waste Depot committee meeting? Nothing further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against carried. Moving on to the meeting, the local emergency management committee. Tuesday the 9th of August, someone can move those minutes. Councillor Whiteley, second. Councillor Kinsey, Councillor Whiteley.
Mr Mayor, I commend the report and the minutes of the meeting to council. I also understand that the management of local that things might change in the future. I think there's a movement in that space, and the state government report that was done out of the Lismore floods, bringing control back locally, and I commend the report to you, and I think watch this space.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteley. The only question I have is regarding access to hydrants and the house fires in Warren, and then I think in the minutes it did indicate that there may be some difficulties in not access, but locating those hydrants. Is that being addressed, and whose responsibility is that?
Warren Council, Town Services, and they're progressively going through both Warren and Nevertime, making sure that the hydrants are clearly marked, blue reflected, yellow and signed, and eventually a media Facebook campaign for people to make sure the hydrants out the front of their houses are actually clear and not covered over by.
And the other question that in the general business there, there were issues with the most recent house fire and trying to get water out of hydrants with enough pressure to make a difference. Is that an issue as well?
No, it all depends on how many pumps are trying to pump out of the system.
Okay. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the local emergency management committee meeting? Yes, Councillor Walker.
Yes, I'm just wondering, general business, the last point about the developing platforms similar to live traffic about road closures. Says it's been rolled out internally and soon to be available to council. Is there any movement on that?
I don't know yet.
Okay, thank you.
There is a little bit of disconnect. If you go to our website, you can actually go to live traffic, which goes to the main traffic management centre setup, which really only works on the state highway network. So if you want to go, someone has to actually manage their journey. So they actually have to probably know that it's Warrenshire and Coonamble-shire and Narrabri-shire if they want to go certain ways, as an example. And so that's the problem. And I'm not 100% certain that eventually the live traffic set up by Transport for New South Wales is going to fix that problem.
I think it is, just on the other side, it's gratifying to see that when things are posted on our website, we actually have Ellinger, Paringa, the Bungay Road closed at Paringa, for instance, just so that people know exactly where that is. That's been better information. Yeah, thank you for that. Anything further on that? Sorry, Councillor Kinsey.
It's really to anybody who wants to answer it, is the hydrants in Nevertire in particular. Do we actually know that they've physically been inspected and painted on all of them? I remember years ago this was an issue that, yes, we've done it, but nobody really hadn't. So is there a system where we can tick them off and say, yes, that one at whatever street's been done, have his own?
Also,
Do we have a system for that?
well, what's trying to happen is I believe the crew is actually trying to GPS them as well to make sure we actually kind of can add it into make sure our plans are right. So all we can do is rely on crews to do an orderly at a time across wherever they are, within reason, then heading off to go and fix up some water main break or whatever.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir, Councillor Kinsey.
So could we have a paper trail on that? On the actual, that it did happen, that they did actually check that item?
The management engineering services might be able to take that on board, I think, and look at that. Is that possible? Yep. A trial of hydrants have been inspected, so, and their location. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Any further from the, excuse me, minutes of the Warren Local Emergency Management Committee's meeting? Any further, we'll put that all those in favour. Yes, carried. The meeting of the Warren Public Arts Committee held Tuesday the 9th of August. Councillor Jackson, happy to move that. Second. Councillor Van Elder. Councillor Jackson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was at the meeting we talked about the finalisation of the public arts project and the successful finalisation and the significant amount of community feedback and how pleased people were with what was actually produced. And so kudos to Randy Burns, the town services manager, who driving that project forward. He's done a sterling job. Two things remain, two primary things remain. We also have the installation of statues and things like that still going to happen. The Lions Park toilet amenities and the Warren CBD amenities are going to be covered by like a wrap of images. And so what the committee agreed is that we would be asking for community input via donation of images, be that either historic images or be that photos that people have taken. The Lions Park facility will have a Macquarie River theme, whatever that would look like. And the Warren CBD toilet amenities near the IGA will have a historic theme that will fit in with the collage that Kenneth has put in of historic photos. So an advertising campaign has been commenced, reaching out to the community, asking them to submit images. So we're hoping that that will have a good response. There were no items of general minutes, so that's pretty much it for public arts.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Yeah, no, that's been a good project and completed to a high standard. It's excellent. You got any further comments, questions regarding any minutes of public arts committee meeting? Councillor Kinsey.
Well, yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's not really a question, it's just a comment. I've noticed that, Nevertire gets a lot of traffic going through it. Look at the various murals, so on an attendance basis, it's very successful.
Hopefully stopping at the hotel, and the new businesses opening,
Yeah, bounding ahead.
Councillor Whiteley.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I can't let it go that Councillor Kinsey can sit at his favourite seat in the Nevertire Hotel and see us here.
Remind me of, yes, various pursuits in his past.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. When the murals, there's a little bit more work on the Macquarie Park one. We're waiting on, I'll call it the mural, part of the murals that go on the doors, that will finish on. And then we make sure that well and truly everything is on the mural trail, because that's on the mural trail, then everything will get on the mural trail. And then I'm sure there'll be complaints of the traffic problems, and Nevertire in particular, and a little bit Warren. The advertising for the trying to get those good quality historical photographs of Warren Shire and then the Macquarie River stuff has started. So, but anybody who knows anybody, point them to getting things to that ad and Facebook ad and emails to get things to pointing out to that we're not going to be able to use all of them. Yeah, it'll be a good result. It's no, and Councillor will notice in the business paper that we've gone to tender on that. Accepted tenders for the provision of those two tools. So it's all happening in the 22-week time frame for their delivery. I think we'll get to that. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Anything further on the guards? No. No further. Put that in that case. Put that all those in favour. Carried. Moving on to minutes of the Economic Development and Promotions Committee. Thank you, boys. With that, Councillor Brewer. Second, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Brewer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We had a very productive meeting, and as you can see there, we had Kerry Palmer from the Regional Development Department of Regional Services New South Wales, and she was speaking to us about a whole bunch of things, in particular visitor services, our information centre, and there's a wealth of experience, and I guess our main focus was messaging and identifying priorities for events and these sorts of things in the town at the time. I'm not going to say we struggle, but there's a lot of competing events in the area, and if you look down into item 5.5 there, we came up with a list of events that we considered were possibly signature events, and I commit that to the Chamber today to consider that some of the events that we consider to be on the signature events are fairly big and they're fairly important to the town, and other community events underneath that, not that have less importance, but probably attract fewer people from outside, and therefore new money, I guess, to the town is one of the ways those things are measured. So if you look at those events there, when we sign off on this today, and if we do, I'm happy for further discussion. But the difference between a signature event, a community event, and a facility event, initially wasn't very clear to me, but I've already tried to explain what signature events are. They're big events that we bring to the region. Community events are funded variously, some by council, some by partner organisations, and some not at all, other than some assistance by council. And then the facility events are planned events, mostly race meetings, but things like, camp draft or polo cross that are managed by other community, community organisations. They bring people and organisations in that don't need a lot of support from council. They sort of stand alone by themselves. So it's a complex discussion to have, but we need to identify priorities for funding and support from council to these events. These lists are by no means exhaustive, but and will be revisited on a regular basis. But that's where we came to with the events, and there's probably more, and there probably will be others as we go forward. So that's a little bit confusing, I guess. But at the end of the day, we're guided by a bit of common sense. We're guided by budgets, and we need to, inject some excitement, I guess, into the town. By doing that, we need to identify events that need support, and those which will bring more people in as we go forward. So that's very long-winded, but I'm happy to have questions on any of that. And this sort of sets our priorities for the near future. So none of this is chipped in stone, so we can revisit some of these things, and if people have other events, then we can have those negotiated as we go on. But this is a starting point for us now. Okay.
Councillor Brewer, I think the best, most valuable part of this is categorising things, so you sort of know where they fit. A signature, a new event happens, where does that sort of fit? Or is that a signature event? Is something that's wide ranging? Is it a community event, or is it something that we have, because we have facilities, and the other facilities, I think it's a sporting and cultural centre, we can have events that are the result of having facilities. So I think that's, in my view, the framework is really well established. I think that's extremely valuable. Any further comments, questions regarding economic development? Thank you, Councillor Bruce.
Also, too, we'll be going forward a lot more when we get the economic development and visitation manager too, who will take on doing things like the brochure and promoting stuff through the regions. I think it will be a really important role.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the economic development committee? Councillor Walker.
Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering also, when you do employ someone who's this economic development visitation manager, is it under the guise also to start looking for volunteers for the visitor information centre? Is that under their...
It is,
part of
but
their
we're
role?
starting early. We are starting early to try to get expressions of interest out there and back for that officer then to manage.
And can I just add, Mr. Mayor, please, that's quite a good question actually, because the skill set of the individual that's eventually employed will inform what that job really actually does. It's hard to nail down a position for a person that doesn't exist yet. It's not nefarious, but that person, if they have a whole bunch of skills and experience, can do a great deal of good things. But we have to understand what the skills and expertise are of that individual before we really nail it down. But having said that, we can't wait. We have to get on to, there's some comments I think later on in here from someone about the visitor information centre right now, and they had a very good experience there. We want to be able to keep that going right now, and it just shows how important that visitor information centre is. So there was a lot of discussion about that. it's a little bit frustrating at the moment because we don't have anyone in that role, but when they do come, they will be managing, if you like, that workforce or that volunteerism force that will help us with that. And they'll be very valuable to that organisation.
So through you, Mr Mayor,
Yep.
is that person that you employ, do they have, is that where they are over there?
Why don't we address that to the general manager?
Yes, that's where they're accommodated. That's where their office, and part of the setup is exactly that. Leading up to their appointment, we will have everything set up with the VIC, an office, meeting room, IT, etc. Provision for between 1 and 2 volunteers out the front of it.
So the advertising for that position has started,
Closes on the 15th of September.
and then proposal is as the second quarter of this financial year was the proposed start date. So that's all in train at present. We hope to get some quality applicants.
So, Tuesday, Sydney Morning Herald had an ad. It's in the local government job directory. It's all the Western magazines. It's on the Economic Development Association website. It's Facebook, LinkedIn, as much as possible. Plus, hit about 5 or 6 people who are in the game to distribute to their contact lists of people who might be interested.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding economic? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. I was just wondering if at that economic development meeting, was there any discussion on the Real Country campaign that involves the Gandra Canal and somewhere nearby?
It's only just gone out now, it's been advised now.
Oh, yeah.
No.
So, through you, Mr Mayor, I was just wondering, because I know the formal advice had come out, I just wondered if Ms Palmer had mentioned it and anyone had talked about it. Because I did notice in the formal communication they're claiming, Canadell claiming the Burpee and platform on marshes as their asset. That's just a comment.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson, for that information. Take that on notice, Councillor Jackson, thank you. Nothing further from the Economic Development Committee meetings minutes. Being case, put that all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the meeting, Managed Committee held on Tuesday the 16th of August. I'm happy to move those minutes. Councillor Whiteley, second. Councillor Bruce, Councillor Whiteley.
I commend the minutes of the managed meeting to you and ask for any comment from the gentleman.
I think it's perhaps useful just to go through those grant funding opportunities, just so that we're clear on those. So the first one is the Local Roads Committee Infrastructure 1, which is 655. So just to reiterate, Gary Whitten, where we are, just so that we've just got a little bit of a more formal recognition of those particular, because they're big amounts, and so what we're thinking about in those particular spaces.
So with the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program Phase 3 extension, we're working on probably $400,000 and $500,000 that we related to roads, and it will be, so that's 4.1.4 we're talking about. And it will be relating to trying to contribute to either fixing local roads programs that are just about to go in and are subject to the information that's contained in the Roads Committee business paper, or fixing country roads, which have up to, we think, 4 projects related to mostly regional roads, but not all. Industrial Access Road, the intersections at either end, Industrial Access Road plus the intersection of Regional Road 333, so we don't have this over the levy like it is at the moment. And rehabilitation and fixing up of certain sections of Industrial Access Road. Martha Guy Road, Tananga Bridge and New Park Bridge, replacement to widen the bridges. Number 3 will be the first 8.2 kilometres of, and I'm not just talking about local roads and community infrastructure, but we're hopefully trying to add this local roads and community infrastructure to help fund those things if required. It's 8.2 kilometres of the Martha Guy Road, first 8.2 kilometres, and then the 5 Mile Cow culvert widening. That's kind of up in the air, but that's 400 to 500,000 for road contribution, and the other part could be, if required, contribution to our levy work. That's part of another application that we've got in the 2022-23 flood mitigation program of the state government, that at least 1/7 of it is required, 1/7 of 1.775 million. We're hoping to get a total of 1.775 million paid by the state government, but they may not be forthcoming with all of it. 4.1.7 provides a reasonable amount of talking points for councillors. It's now for people who may query you on the Warren Family Health Centre. It's now in open council and public, but just being careful with how much information we're providing.
The local government recovery grant program, $1 million.
Another one, we've been advised of a $1 million program that by about the 19th of October we have to make decisions on. There's some of the works that we're considering. Again, 19th of October decision time, and we're hoping that we don't have to contribute to the levy contribution, or having to pay for our operational costs of the levy for the last 3 floods, if we are able to contribute from this fund. It's rather complicated. The Divisional Manager of Finance Administration has been tasked with trying to understand it and understand the funding regime, what can be funded and what can't be funded. And all you can want to say is it's complicated, too complicated at the moment.
What do you think, thank you?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
And as a summary of our flood damage, so up on the wall there is an approved so far of 1.871 million for the March 2021 flood damage claim. We've got, and we'll call that package 1. We've got package 2 in with them at the moment of approximately $350,000, which is for the culvert replacement on Dragon Cow on Shire 40 Marigold Road. And there's at least $850,000 that's been carried over from March 2021 to the November 2021 flood and storm damage. It could be up to 1.4 million and not 850,000. We've received $425,000 reimbursement out of our $462,000 for the costs for emergency work March 2021. we've received about $720,000 of emergency restoration work for the November, December one. Emergency work, not emergency work. 681 and added 717 because, our contribution has been paid for by last year's, so there's $35,500 contribution, $36,300 contribution for those two flood damage programs that have been paid for from last year's budget. And we have engaged Built Environment Collective to go and do, I'll call it June, July, August, because they're just merged into each other of flood damage. I think it's AGRN 1025. Don't take that as gospel, please. There could be at least $300,000 just on the Owen Gerard Road restoration works from that flood damage claim. It keeps raining. We just have to keep trying to manage the users of our road network who we have to keep closing them. Bus routes are in trouble. The condition of the road network is very poor because it just keeps raining. And hopefully the next couple of years of flood damage restoration work and extra works will see some improvement. Now that also then means that with the extra works that come in flood damage wise and I'll call it road rehabilitation and construction wise, we are working on 4.3 of trying to work out our priority of permanently filling some crews, some secondment work of a temporary fifth grader crew, and a high chance of relief plan operator being a permanent employee because our 20 road staff, as soon as someone's away, we almost shut down grader crews because we can't fill them. RNCC and pre-qualification status wise, I'll pass to the Division Manager Interim Services to talk about what may happen.
Things there. The contract manager for transport use of areas has released the whole points. This means that the routine maintenance is good to go. So we are talking about commencement of 1st September. I'm going to have a meeting with them next week to firm that out. So as part of the takeover, we will do something called joint planning assessment with transport. And after that, once we agree on everything, there will be a handover of routine maintenance with the Gilgandra Council. So our staff, along with transport staff, will meet Gilgandra staff with the handover.
You're hoping Tuesday the 3rd of October, aren't you?
Yeah, that's our plan, but they are thinking 1st of September.
1st of September?
Yeah.
Okay. We're forward, right? That's unusual.
Thank you. I don't know if there's anything and sorry, the hazard reduction grant 280.
Yes, very, very pleasing, Mr. Mayor, to be advised of a $285,000, an $88, so $285,000. I reported it actually in the roads area this month. So that's a little bit more than last year, and we hope that lots of slashing and work around Nevertire and Collide and around our waste depot again, making sure that our bushfire hazard reduction works are undertaken. Just continuing on, Stronger Country Communities program. that's what has funded about last year. It funded $95,000 worth of work on the Equestrian Arena and $671,000 worth of work that's at Carter Oval, which is going to be the amenities block. This year we've got just $856,000 for council allocation, and the application that's going to go in is for the Warren War Memorial Swimming Pool, office kiosk, and a small club room set up to replace the existing facilities there. There's about not 370, but there's about $390,000 for community projects, and the main real priorities are going to be perhaps addition to the Monkey Bird Viewing Platform Stage 2 of at least $100,000 has been considered. The Barnum Boardwalk access road, and the community has to be considered. I'll take back, the Monkey Bird Viewing Platform is not involved, but it's probably going to be the Barnum Boardwalk access road of about $390,000. The Wow Centre precinct redevelopment of about $390,000. And a third one to be considered is somewhere between $250,000 and $290,000 is reimbursement of the refurbishment of the Endeavour Hall. And so we're going to be either helping people put together those community grant applications, plus our own for the Warren Memorial Swimming Pool. Anyone does it? And the Regional Tourism Activation Fund, M2, will be the Monkey Bird Viewing Platform Stage 2 if we need it. Again, a double up for the redevelopment of the Wow Centre precincts and the Barnum Boardwalk access road.
The thinking is, sorry, just going to strong country communities, the 855, is that we're getting everything else down at Carter Oval in pretty good order. Now we look at that amenities block of the swimming pool, and probably that's the area that probably lets that precinct down at the minute. And it's an opportunity to fund that externally to get that rebuilt. We probably should be taking that opportunity. So that's the thinking behind that one. And that closes very soon, doesn't it? Yes. September. Yeah. Thank you for that, gentlemen. Any comments, questions regarding the managed committee meeting? Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I'm just wondering on page 1 of the managed units, 4.1 executive office matters, having a meeting with the WOW agency to see how they can be supported time-wise.
So that's WOW agency, not WOW. Not Riversmart.
No,
sorry. So that's just we're trying our hardest to stay within the number of hours that the contract allows for.
The positive there, though, Councillor Walker, is that a lot of information, they do get a lot of information out for us. And without them, we don't have the capacity, quite frankly, to do it.
Yes. You've done a good job. Yeah. Thank you.
Any further comments, questions regarding the managed committee minutes? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the minutes of the Roads Committee held on Thursday, the 18th of August. Councillor Whiteley, happy to move that. Second. Councillor Whiteley.
Mr. Mayor, through you to everyone, the word complicated has been used a couple of times already this morning on the road basis. The roads is complicated. I commend the minutes to you. Just to preface a couple of things. Our Director of Engineer Services finally, as of a week or so ago, has a full team again. with his asset manager and his technical roads officer. And personally, I congratulate the team that's been running with half power for a long while, so good luck, Mr. Engineer. The committee those there on the Councillor McCoskey, Mr. Councillor Brewer, and myself and the staff went through all what we've talked about today with the road funding application. We've suggested, you see there the level or the priorities that we've put onto the local road recommendation to council. The one Bogan Road segments on the Nevertide Tottenham Road jumped out at us because of the safety orientation. It's definitely dangerous. Second, the reseal of the bitumen program is looking after our asset. You know, we can't let it deteriorate more than it's already deteriorating, as the General Manager commented on the roads. 3 was the gravel resheeting program. 4, the Tyree Road. And those who are not aware, the Tyree Road comes off the Tottenham Road, heading to Dandalude. The 5 was the Pekindai, the end of the Pekindai Road going into the Narromine, Ningan Shire, which on our bus trip we inspected. 6, the Old Warren Road segments, which is past the Unawina Homestead. Then Gibson Way segments, the first 2 segments of Gibson Way on the western side of the river, and 8, which is upgraded gradual lane bridges. So obviously the priorities there for discussion, the fact being that funding won't get to number 8, of course, but I would commend it to you. Gary's already talked about the flood damage claims and how we're going to manage that. He gave us detailed, more detail than you have even had today over the planning of the staff and how we're going to program that, combined with taking over the highways as well. It was a couple of 2.5 hours of intense detail that we went with, and I congratulate the staff for putting up with 3 elected officers challenging them, and I thought it was a great couple of hours spent. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteley. Any further comments, questions regarding the roads committee? Councillor Bruce.
To you there. Just wondering how have you got further with the betterment of the Oxford Highway near Newman Bridge? It's at the last item there in general business.
Submission to the Minister's office done already. Waiting.
Through you there, just a comment coming in this morning. It's like a snake where they've blocked off the road. It's really terrible there.
It's wonderful photos of that in traffic lights.
You might recall Scott Barrett, MLC, visited us recently when there was certainly no water around. We took him out to that particular piece of the State Highway just south of Newman Bridge. We took him to the causeway from 202, just another kilometre beyond that, saying, how do these 2 look to you? This is our local road, the concrete causeway that's been there for a very long time. Here's a highway that's been washed out any number of times. What do you think? And he, of course, had no. He was very friendly about it. A betterment situation there is what's required. So recently, he took some photos that day. the manager, Divisional Manager Finance Administration provided him some photos of the previous flooding event in November. And so we've now taken, I think he's got some new photos of the flooding event as it's going on now. So my belief is just common sense should prevail at some stage, but we can't be too sure of that, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Gosling.
Previous Mayor, just for a little thing in the general business, there's only one of me.
Yeah, I know, there's, sometimes we got them into everything.
I'll not do as much as
My scribble.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, Councillor Bruce and then Councillor Whiteley.
So just another question, for you, Mayor. One of the previous meetings, where it came up about, a sign to put out on the Nevertire, the Tottenham Bogan Road, the narrow sign, where wondering if that's going to happen, where the new road is, and then it narrows again, especially with this wet weather, it's quite dangerous, the road on when it narrows.
Just clear that and then Green Services, so, sorry, you clear about Councillor Bruce's question there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will take that up to the platform.
I think you could probably, yeah,
Don't need to just
put a sign out.
But it was the last road scheme.
Yeah, it came up with that, the one with the big.
Exactly what road is it?
The Nevertire, the Tottenham Bogan Road, where the new section is, and then it narrows.
Start of section 4.
Yeah, so if you saw the bog marks out there, you know.
There's a chance that it's actually on the action checklist of roads, but the narrow section commencement needs to be just signed. You just put your narrow road signs, because they're warning signs, so they don't need to be traffic committed. Narrow section commencement is just the narrow road warning signs.
As a matter of safety, that would be worthwhile given the present conditions once you get off the civil service.
Yeah, through you, especially night time, it's very hard to see.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Whiteley, I think you had something further?
Just one other thing we discussed with the Divisional Engineering Services Manager, a formal road inspection. Now he's got a technical officer, and the hierarchy of that and how that was to be done. Obviously, the more the traffic count, or the more the importance of the road, the more often the inspection. But once his technical officer gets under his feet under the desk properly, comment if he likes, but there'll be a formal road inspection.
Road inspection, and sorry, and did you mention traffic counts as well there?
I meant the inspection policy will fit the traffic count of the road, or the importance of the road. So the minor access roads won't be inspected as much as obviously region.
Thank you. Thank you. Last time fixing over roads, we had a number of submissions. We were successful with only 2 of those, were we? I've just forgotten.
Yeah, Alan Gerard
and Ron Road. Yeah, so because even though we put those in a particular order, we can't be in any way, shape or form guaranteed that those will be the ones that will be successful, which is a little bit disappointing when the Roads Committee goes to the effort of really going in some detail, prioritising things, and then you don't necessarily get back what you've been asking for.
At the 2 GMAX back, we General Managers Advisory Committee meetings of the Alliance of Western Councils, we actually had the pull in the number 2 of Transport for New South Wales within the outer parks, and he said that they're expecting that Transport for New South Wales this time might actually take into account council's priorities. Yeah, because I think we've got number 2 and number 6.
Yeah, it doesn't quite follow, but we raised that point out at Cobar when we met with Transport for New South Wales along with stand very well with the regional roads, that, you know, it would be sensible if we follow, council does the work in deciding what the highest priority is. Would it not be sensible to say, you guys have done the work, you understand your road network, we'll just fund what, with the funding we have available, down to the priorities where that funding runs out.
Common sense.
Councillor Whiteley first, then Councillor Walker.
Just one thing on that, is it, how does that logic work? Like, is it logic done on the amount of money for each project, or is it a logic that, the Roads New South Wales bureaucrat just puts his finger on the sheet?
I can have to say I can't be sure, Councillor Whiteley, but
Nor can we. So I think the limitation this time, is it $3 million contribution maximum to each project, isn't it?
Yes, $3 million maximum for each individual project. $1 million is for a bundle project, like bitumen resale or gravel machine. Bundle up means many lots bundled into one.
Because we had the bitumen resale program and the gravel sheeting program, I think is number 2 and number 3 last time, and we got number 1 and number 6, and as I say, this officer, he said this time we might actually take into consideration council's priorities instead of some system that they had.
Using the term euphemistic system. Any further comments, questions regarding the Roads Committee? Councillor Walker.
Just a quick one within the general business, Mr. Mayor, about the road outside the golf club, if that's been attended to.
State highway. Yeah. I don't think it's the management engineering services, whether that's been brought to the attention of your gang, just near the golf club, State Highway 11. Yeah, I wonder whether you might bring up the speed of that.
The previous Mayor, I spoke with the transport surveillance officer about that section of the road. He says they have some future plans to pay it properly, but in the meantime, they just keep on touching it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kinsey.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just query, when the roads are inspected by these inspectors, whoever they are, how does that information get to us, council? So, Reagan, I don't care which road, but if a road somewhere, Rifle Road gets inspected, so it says it's good, bad or indifferent. Do we get told that at the meeting or at a Roads Committee meeting?
No, Mr. Mayor, what it is it's an internal system. We're actually trying to pick up priority work by the staff and doing risk management on the works. So I don't think we need to report to the council whether a guide post needs to be replaced.
That's not
Or sign, that's what the inspections are doing.
right. I was under the impression that we were being told the actual condition of the road surface as well.
The condition surface, whether it's unsealed or sealed, will be reported within the asset management system and helps inform priorities for whether it's gravel resheeting, bitumen reseals, or reconstruction and rehabilitation. It informs the report and is part of the analysis for priorities that will go to the council, particularly reconstruction and rehabilitation.
Councillor Kinsey, you're alluding to the workshop we did with, where we went through the asset management plan and various roads were given was a 1 to 5, I think. Were you part of that? Is that what you were speaking about?
Mainly is, just take the Rifle Road. So the report said that it was whatever condition it was in. And I decided, well, I'll go and have a look and say that this report is true and correct, or just however they figure out what condition the road's in. If I disagree with it, then I should be able to read the report and then come back to a council meeting and say, I don't entirely agree with this, but if I get the information, you know, if I don't get the information at the time that I can go out and inspect myself, then I really can't comment about the road.
That's an operational matter, Mr. Mayor, not a council matter. It's an asset management system within that actually informs the council overall of proposed improvement works that are not, it's really both condition and work required on individual roads, feeds the risk management system that feeds priority work within our budget.
Thank you.
Councillor Kinsey, I think nothing precludes a councillor from bringing to the attention of management engineering services the road if it's in poor condition. I think that's probably where we can sit and then follow that up once it's been documented. Councillor White.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, commenting on this last conversation. That's where it's at. Councillor Kinsey, the reports, the priorities in the discussion at the roads committee, the councillors or the councillors on the roads committee have an influence on the priority. Whether we have the voting was discussed, obviously a couple of those priorities changed. There was debate on the whys and wherefores of the priorities, and yeah, I feel confident the system will work.
Thank you, Councillor White. Any further comments, questions regarding the roads committee minutes? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to reports of delegates. The first of those being excuse me, the minutes of the meeting of the Council Macquarie County Council held in June. So Councillor Kinsey, happy to move that. Second. Councillor Drews. Councillor Kinsey.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the meeting was held in June, was the other date, can't remember actually.
Yeah, you know, a little time ago.
Yeah. Basically, it was all about finance and all, how we were going to run the show, etc. They obviously there in the draft. The interesting part was that we seem to be swinging more to bio-control, which is going to be a very, very slow process. But when you consider the areas and the weeds we've got to deal with, probably is the only way we can do it to finish. But there's a flyer on your desk, and if you actually have a look at it and look at the back of it, which is the most interesting part of it, you can see the issues that we've got as individual councils. Quite frankly, Lawrence not doing too badly if you look at the problems that some of the other top councils have got. There's a lot of these things you really don't want them in your neighbourhood. Bad news. And yeah, the basically financing, the county is going very well. We've got over $1 million sitting around for administration purposes, and it's not too bad. I mean, I'm open for any questions.
No, it's a significant turnaround from where Councillor Macquarie County Council has been in the past, which Councillor Brewer will attest to. Thank you, Councillor Kinsey. Any further comments, questions regarding the Councillor Macquarie County Council minutes? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on from this. The meeting of the Alliance of Western Councils held on the 1st of July. I suppose, yes, I'm happy to move it. And the second, Councillor Taylor. Again, quite a productive meeting. Joni Nash was one of the guests there speaking regarding education, and took on board all the concerns that we're all having in terms of teachers on the ground in our schools and the level of staffing. think she's more an information gathering session for her than anything else. Also had a presentation from Ian George from Telstra. Difficult again to pin down. He's an engagement officer, but difficult to pin down on more than quite a superficial level. Raised the Never Tire matter, lack of coverage. And it's a typical unfortunate response. Yes, I'll take it on board situation, or hang on a minute, it's only been there for 20 years. So I'm not sure that it was worthwhile, but don't know expecting too much out of that. Dougal, I'm not even following that. Dougal Saunders was in attendance, spoke particularly about the varroa concern at that time, and then has picked up the foot and mouth issue, which obviously was playing on people's minds just starting at that time as well. And the response has been, in my view, a big step forward with the meeting in Dubbo a couple of days ago. So the biosecurity issue is front and foremost on his mind. Issues raised there. The other one that we did with the newly formed Alliance Western Councils as opposed to the joint organisation, sought to have endorsed the view that Burrendong should be at 120% as the full supply level. In the present circumstances, that may take a little bit of getting through, but Burrendong is being managed really well at present. You know, anywhere between 110 to 100, it's up to close to 135, 140 level. So what I think what we'll see is hopefully, as we step back from this wetter period, we'll see that the dam can be managed. And I think the important thing to take on board is that things aren't so much set in concrete, but things are adaptable given the circumstances that we find ourselves in front of. So forecasting is so much better, measurement of the tributary flows is so much better. We're actually getting a real handle on how to manage the river. And so, yeah, we need to remember that, say, Wainwell Dam really doesn't have any flood mitigation capacity. Their idea of flood mitigation capacity is reduced from 100 to 90%. You know, we've got from 100 at present to 142, 120 to 142 in a dry time. 120 in a dry time would be a significant advantage to all of our community. So that was passed, although I'm getting a bit of pushback as the wet conditions continue. What else was there? Happy to fill any questions regarding the minutes. Seeking representation at the next meeting in Burke on 14th of October, I think it is. 13th of October, 14th actual meeting, yeah. From Bonnie Taylor, Regional Health Minister. I think that's at the forefront of our mind. But it's a matter of perhaps getting those people out again and continuing to push the point. Yeah, look, again, productive meeting. It is a meeting that is well and truly worthwhile, and we will continue to attend those Alliance Western Council meetings. Councillor Parr.
A question to you, Mr. Mayor. Your motion was resolved unanimously, but where does it go from there? Who makes the decision?
No, I think it's well, it'll be in the court of the Water Minister. But what we're trying to show, Councillor Taylor, is that there is a block of councils along the Macquarie who are supportive of that proposal. So that's everyone on the same page is what we're trying to achieve, or we as the council are trying to achieve from that motion. Doesn't have to go any further. We know that it's there. It's written. It's been passed unanimously, and I purposely wanted that unanimously in there so that there's no no backtracking. As I said, you know, I think sometimes mayors upstream have short-term memories. You know, in flood stage 2019, rivers came off below 1. They're not particularly threatened at the moment, and all our landowners are cooking a building so anywhere along the river. So, you know, at the moment, Burrendong in Bay 3 in terms of flood mitigation, the releases from Burrendong should be a max of 18,000 metres a day, certainly above that going through. And so we're taking more than what the water sharing plan should be needing to take. But for the greater good, it's happening, and it's the management of the system. So the management of the system in a drier time should work the other way as well. Is probably where that comes from. Councillor Bruce.
Yes. Just a question. What came out of the discussions we did with Swans about the issues with housing for all the professions like nurses, doctors? Was there any?
Nothing particularly, Councillor Bruce. It's an issue everywhere. It's a response. Yeah, there's nothing particularly insightful. Not the smallest.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Walker.
I'm just wondering with Duke Saunders, you brought up the biodiversity. I don't know if I understand and review the calculator, but is there, or maybe it comes on from the meeting just had, is there any indication that our council, if something is to happen, how you react, what you do? Is there a plan, I suppose?
Health and Development Services is slowly learning that. She may be able to expand a little bit.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's quite in-depth and involved. So my understanding of it is that you have to engage a qualified expert for they have to do a study of the site, and then depending on what the site produces, so the most common one that everyone knows is koalas. So if there's a species, plant or animal that is protected or endangered, then it becomes further.
No, I probably can explain. I was also wondering if we have a foot and mouth outbreak, what is the goal?
That's okay. You're talking about it's just two different things. There's biosecurity, which is to do what if you're talking about a foot and mouth outbreak or lump skin, whatever.
Yes.
Biodiversity is an offset scheme. If a development takes place and there's vegetation removed, an offset has to occur, and the cost of that offset is well and truly in excess often of the cost of the development.
Yes, no, I know a bit about that. I was more interested in the biosecurity issue for council.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's with the Department of Primary Industries. It was discussed at our recent local emergency management committee, and essentially, if there is, it'll be a lockdown. It'll essentially be a lockdown.
Thank you.
No, the only other point I would make is there was some discussion regarding the Red Fleet, which is the Rural Fire Service assets. Managing Finance Administration was in attendance at that meeting, and we both made this point fairly strongly that they weren't assets that were under our control. A couple of councils have adopted those as part of their assets. Walgett, perhaps in Narromine, I believe, were they the two? I was at that meeting just speaking. But nonetheless, we have chosen as resolved to not include those as part of the assets of Warren Shire Council. But the discussion was, pretty firm, and I would have thought the view of most councils was that they weren't assets that should be recognised on the council, particularly any council. That, Dan, would you have any different view, or do you want to add to that?
Sure, Mr. Bennett. No, that's, and basically it was brought up at the last council meeting and resolved that you're right, and we've written to the audit office and to the development business. We've actually had a team meeting with our audit engagement party from the audit office in Manuel, and he told us the audit officer's stance, we told him our stance, and it's still a Mexican standoff. But yeah, and they're aware of what's going on behind the scenes as well. And we've brought our points of view of we don't believe we control the assets. They've got their view that the Act hasn't, the word vested in the Act hasn't been omitted from the Act, so therefore they must be warrant right down to assets. So that's where they're pulling their line from, but we're pulling our line from physical control and materiality. So
Which is the accounting standard.
yeah. And it's written into the code of accounting practice by the state government that each council is to make their own assessment of whether they believe they control or not. So if it's written in the code by the state government, then we're abiding by the code by saying we've looked at it, we don't believe that we control them, so therefore we're not booking them. So yeah.
Continuing.
It's a continuing saga.
Yep. Thank you. Councillor White.
Happened to be going through parks the other day, and Councillor Kenny Keith indicated on the radio that there was a meeting this week from the local government association and state government trying to diffuse this policy. We will be told.
Yeah, I'm going to think it's a high level discussion with a number of councils, and I think that's the value in belonging to local government New South Wales. You know, we sometimes think it's not the highest priority, but they can act as your peak body in something like this, and I think that's where we continue to need to support local government New South Wales and country mayors is the other one who are really strong organisation. Any further comments, questions regarding the Alliance Western Council's minutes? And further, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the agency support services, and that the minutes are actually tabled there, and there were new minutes in the electronically sent. Councillor Walker, you're looking at fraction blank, but you're aware that the minutes in the paper initially.
I had a chat with Cassie the other day, she picked it up, and she's given us the handout of what the actual meeting was. Yeah.
Is someone happy to move those minutes of the one interagency support services meeting? Councillor Jackson, thank you. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Jackson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to comment on the item of general business. Because while we can disclose it makes it difficult for agencies to advertise their services to the people who require. I just, I just wanted to really bring that forward because just wondering when council plays a role in helping these agencies to advertise their services that they say they used to advertise in the paper, or whether council does not play a role in that, perhaps on the notes board, or is that something that council, or is it no, that's not our job?
If it's practical, they can use our events system. And events get, you actually click into our website and fill out the form for events that then is put through the system, approved or not approved, and that's one way. But people have to do some work to actually fill in the information. So that's one way it could be improved, and then that eventually leads to being able to be put on the television that's going to go up at the front door here eventually. So that's if possible, if you have a look at our event system, there's actually a way people can actually kind of list their event. Doesn't automatically go on, it gets approved, but that's one way it could happen.
You certainly may, Councillor Jackson.
I guess just wanted to clarify, are we, through the interagency committee or some other means, proactively going to these agencies to advise them that they could use these services to help promote what they're doing, and even things like drug and alcohol counselling and those sorts of services that they're providing? One thing is things like the Grow Expo, the other is things like clear drug and alcohol counselling service, for example. Is that something that council would put on their notice boards, or really council would only say things like Grow Expo or, you know, a walk-in?
As I say, it depends, we will let all the agencies know, but it will be subject to the suitability.
I think it's very difficult, Councillor Jackson, to have a blanket rule, yes or no, but I think we just take on board what the general manager is saying there. Agencies avail themselves of the opportunity, but subject to vetting by the appropriateness. But let them know, on the other side, Councillor Jackson, that there is potential for them to use council services.
And Councillor, you might have been aware, how much advertising were they doing?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just for the sake of saying it, by the looks.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, they want free promotion of some of these events, which the paper was happy to do. You can read the contents of the paper and see that. But also, if they had a grant, there would be advertising. If for a large event, there'd be an advertising budget as part of that. I guess I would be, I think it needs to be made clear to some of these agencies that process of vetting what is appropriate. Perhaps there should be some guidelines or policies put in place. Maybe council, from an operational perspective, needs to think about what sorts of things they could help promote and what are things that really should stay in that space of, you know.
Yes, but we're attempting to do that.
Yeah, I don't think it's the easiest thing to navigate, Councillor Jackson, but take on board. And I also very much, you know, having been a reader of the paper, have noticed that these groups weren't particularly trying to get advertising, so I think it is a little bit of a side issue. Health things certainly can be provided through RAMS, the building, Byron Family Medical Centre, and the NPS can take responsibility for promoting things. Those organisations, yeah, I think they've got to, in my view, not rely on everyone else. I think they tend to push things to someone else to promote, you know, which is hardly reasonable. So, Councillor Walker, then Councillor Bruce.
I'll follow up on what saying that, I mean, the interagency is a whole list of agencies, so you do find when you get the email, it's usually from Tessie to say something's on, and so it's disseminated through all those agencies. So if they can put it out also and take note. And can I just also follow up and say, a few people are asking about the Grow Expo. It's going to be on the 7th of October at the Youth Centre. And also in October, there's the band, the Castaway Connections in Narromines playing. Some people are quite aware of Castaway Connections, and I wasn't, but it's a young Indigenous fellow who sang on the voice, and his family, his father sings with him, and they're putting a concert on that day, which would be Youngie's worth probably having.
But I'm sorry, just for clarity, the Grow event is being run by Byron Youth Centre, is it not?
That's where it's positioned, that's where that's where it's going to be held, but all the agencies can come along and set up a stall and get out information.
So they're promoting the event, as what I'm saying, I suppose, which we can help with. And we'll have a stand
It's
there.
on our event.
Yep, so it's there, said, so,
We're going to have a stand, I think, in conjunction with WAC. See you there, Senator Drews. And perhaps Warren Rotary.
Councillor Drews, you had a question too?
Yes, I did. Just a comment. I'm pretty excited to see the verbal report from Amy Hall. The initiative to contact greenhouse at the NPS. I think we're all pushing for growing your own. And I think this is absolutely wonderful. Yeah, to promote it in the schools, to get male and female interested in starting out as a nursing assistant and progress through. I think it's just wonderful.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the interagency support services meeting? Nothing further with that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the meeting of the Country Mayors Association in South Wales. Unfortunately, the Chair and I were both absent from at that time. And so the minutes are there in front of you. Someone happy to move those minutes? Councillor Whiteley, thank you. Second, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Whiteley.
Just commend it to the meeting, the minutes, anything out of that, Mr. Mayor?
I think the gentleman like to spend a lot of time going to meetings. I think I mean, we were away at that, for that one, but I think you sometimes have to pick your targets a little bit. And depending on, that's right, depending on what is on the agenda, we will make ourselves available if it's something that really is important. So, nonetheless, a great reform Country Mayors as we've spoken about before. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the Country Mayors, the minutes of the Country Mayors meeting? Being case put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. We have no policy matters to consider. Moving on to the reports of the General Manager. First of those, the outstanding reports checklist. Something happy to move those. That's a very extensive list. Someone happy to move that. Councillor Kinsey, thank you. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Kinsey.
Move for discussion, software.
Probably a request for further information. Would that be with the way you're putting this, Councillor Kinsey? Is it?
Yeah. Well, actually, the coverage had never tried this. We're still in communication with these chaps from Melbourne about this tower set up, and I think he was going to be back from leave middle of next month, as far as I can work out. So if we can organise with the General Manager and whoever else wants to be involved in the discussion with this bloke, we'll come and visit, talk about it, and move on from there.
Name the Finance Administration, you were liaising on that? Yeah. So, Councillor Kinsey, you're aware of someone coming, are you? Is it?
Yeah, he was going to be in touch with me and council. We were just going to organise this guy to come and visit, talk about it, see the feasible.
Thank you.
So I must admit, I'm out of my depth with all that stuff. Completely.
I don't believe that's true, Councillor. Anything further coming out of the outstanding reports checklist from the item one of the General Manager's report? Councillor Walker.
Mr. Mayor, just wondering, is the new sewage treatment plant now working? Or is
No, not quite. There's a communication system problem that's getting remedied hopefully within a week, and then Drongaz will come along and finalise the commission. So the electronic system is not talking properly to each other. When that's fixed, it will be fully commissioned.
just on the printed page, just I'm not sure that we're all on the same page. Question regarding, the difference between, CBD upgrade and a town centre upgrade.
No difference.
No difference, so why are we calling them?
That was the resolutions at the time. Yeah, probably a couple of different amendments.
It'd be nice to see all of these things streamlined so we don't have.
They've been put together.
I think we can cover a lot of this in single sentences and no, I'll leave it for discussion on another day. So I'm just looking through, I tend to ask for us all of these things on paper.
You don't like that big report.
I want the last bit of relevant information rather than we've had a lot of the background is what I'm suggesting. You know, power poles at Carter Oval, I don't think we need to go backwards 2 million steps, just where we're up to now is what and that's the bit that's outstanding in my mind, as opposed to the background. You know, rubber tyre rollers is mentioned on 2 pages, you know, I don't think we need to have it mentioned twice, you know, page 17 and 18. You know, I think there's space here to be much more efficient with councillors' time in reading information. I have nothing further regarding the outstanding reports checklist. Councillor Whiteley.
Whilst I was carefully biting my tongue, I had to let it go, but, is in review of our, I understand legislation and work and practice, in local government pretty standard. Is a review of the way we structure a business paper possibly in order?
It's called the Code of Meeting Practice, and you may have a workshop mid-September. However, there is a minimum requirement.
I realise that.
Let's have that discussion at the workshop, and we'll go from there. The last one, the last item on the outstanding report checklist, changes to government election days, community consultation plan, and then we've called it a consultation plan, and we advise the railways to remove the word consultation from the community engagement plan, but we still call it a consultation plan.
That's what the report was called. That's what the report was called. Community consultation plan, when it should have been community engagement. You won't see it next. It's been asterisk.
Thank you.
And Mr Mayor, when the report's cut down, I would suggest there be no queries from councillors on any information, because they will all remembered it from previously.
Let's have a discussion for a chat. Thank you. Thank you for your forbearance on this matter. Any further on the outstanding reports checklist? There being nothing further, put that all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 2 of the General Manager's report. And in recognition of Warren being a healthy town and convening of the Health and Lifestyle Council is standing while further item 2 of the General Manager's report. That report is the committee delegates meetings that have been held and forthcoming. Someone happy to move those? Councillor Bruce happy to move that. Councillor Jackson second. Councillor Bruce.
No, just happy to move that we've received and noted. Thank you.
That was very, very quick. Haven't you got any further questions, Councillor Bruce?
No, I think it's been all covered in reports.
Thank you. being facetious.
You are.
There being nothing further, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Please have a seat. Item 3, General Manager report, the works progress report regarding infrastructure projects. Someone happy to move that information? Councillor Whiteley, thank you. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Whiteley.
The report is in front of everyone. Commend it to you. Things are moving on. I understand, and I publicly commend our new infrastructure project manager for the way it's come into the organisation in the town. Other comments, I commend.
A question. And me, page 34 on the printed document, at least regarding the water tower mural, never retirement and water, the town murals on private property. Just wanting to be sure about the budgets there. 114,000 on the Nevertire water tower budget, expended 56, but then we go down to the town murals on private property, budget was 4,000, we spent 47. Do they?
Thread all that up to,
Yeah.
budget on the left and the expenditure on the right, which is sticking. It was all as per resolution. It's just that the Nevertire water tower mural costs less than estimated, and that allows us to spend much more money in the town mural or on private property.
Yeah, no, that's, I assumed that was the issue, the reasoning, but, thank you for just clarifying that.
And same with the established street and water tower, all of it adds up and comes very, very close. We might have a little bit over, a little bit of finalisation to do, but it comes pretty close.
Very good, thank you. Anything further regarding item 3, the General Manager report, infrastructure projects? Sorry, Councillor Foster.
Through you, Chair. Just on page 32, there's a couple of items listed there where the work's complete, and we've got a budget figure and a nil expenditure figure. Does that mean, given the work's completed and the budget figure is money unspent still?
And on the right-hand side, it says which will be allocated.
Yeah, no, I realise that.
Yeah. Particularly the sewer stuff. The sewer stuff's all over the place. It's really just, everything kind of adds up. All the sewer stuff adds up to really toilet stuff. Not really big stuff, but toilet project, sewer project, are all one
Together, okay. Thank you, so Councillor.
Just a question, then with the, out at the airport, have you got, the new slab design for advances? Is that?
within the next month, including construction drawings to be used for the tender. It'd be probably, I'm guessing, we're actually going to be provision for both for the contractor to make a decision.
So that advertising's still going out?
Oh, I think we're within 3 or 4 weeks of having it all finished before the quotations go out.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Any further comments, questions regarding infrastructure projects on through the General Manager's report? Nothing further, put that all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the reports of the Division Manager of Finance Administration, first of those being the reconciliation certificate. Someone happy to move that? Thank you, Councillor Walker. Second, Councillor Walker.
Recommendation, thank you.
Management Fund Administration, I'm noticing the sewerage fund has a reasonable balance there, even given the funds expended. Yeah, that's in a good position.
Yeah, serious to me, yeah, it is in a good position, and we still have some work to do on the take out of the treatment plant. And we've also some carryover work for lining of fill mains that we're undertaking through this year, and smoke testing and pump station upgrades. So there is a lot of capital work still to be undertaken there. But also, when we looked at the loan that we put out of the treatment work, we always wanted to leave ourselves with a balance for unexpected capital works, improvement or problems we may have, unlike what happened with the water fund where we changed it a little bit too far.
And question then, regarding water fund, are you comfortable with that level of funding in the water fund at present?
At present, we haven't identified a lot of capital works going forward, and we are looking at grant funding. So it's sufficient, but we still need to build that reserve up in the case of, because we have got aging dual supplied mains out there. So yes, that mains replacement or maintenance is probably our biggest expense in the water fund.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments regarding item 1 of the Visual Land Finance Administration report? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 2, Visual Land Finance Administration report, that being the statement of rates and annual charges. Someone happy to move that information be received and noted? Councillor Whiteley, second Councillor Walker. Councillor Whiteley.
Yeah, I commend the report to the council.
Just stretching. Councillor Bruce. Any further comments, questions regarding item 2, statement of rates and annual charges? Nothing further, put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 3, that being the works progress report under the control of the Division Management Finance Administration. Someone happy to move that? Again, the information be received and noted. Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Councillor Walker. Councillor Bruce.
Just a question, I'm happy to move, just a question before I move this, what, the council building hasn't gone back into the report. Is there a reason why, I read out last time that it hasn't come back in?
All the funds that we had allocated.
It's just, yeah, right, wasn't mentioned at the last meeting, I suppose, but that's no, well, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Sorry, Councillor Whiteley, yes.
We are finished. It's the little box in the corner over here to be.
No, different fund.
So,
For councillors who haven't been in the administration building, the interview room, the 2 rooms are there, really looking really decent. They're good. The hallway's been painted down through the whole offices, the existing corridor, and carpet's been placed. It's not, in my view, made a significant difference to the way that the place looks. Yeah. Within the budget, it's been done well. Yeah. Councillors, there was an aside from the Management Finance Administration regarding perhaps keeping his door closed into his office.
I can't get up because I'm starting to use my floor again. Exactly, there's too many jobs going.
but when you move out of security, jokingly, when he moves out of his office, he takes over another room with the floor.
Well, no, I use tables, 6 or 7 tables. Mr. Mayor has now, most of it's gone upstairs to the infrastructure project manager, and he's using the old council chambers, just so we can try to understand, because, I mean, there are 50 projects going on at once, it's just too much. Sub-projects.
Thank you. No further comments, questions regarding item 4? In that case, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item, sorry, that was item 3, moving on to item 4. The internally restricted funds as at the 30th of June 22 and 1st of July 22. So after we've had a mover and seconder, with the information received and noted and that council approved the list of internal restricted funds at those 2 different dates, I'll ask the Management Fund Administration to explain what's actually going on there for the council's benefit. So it's just a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Jackson moved, second Councillor Walker. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Do you have any comment before?
I have no comment on
I wonder whether the Danger Finance Administration just might explain to councillors the different values there, and I think it, just for explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. Basically, with internal restrictions, and they must be approved and passed by council, they have to be fully cash funded. And when we got to 30, well, the list that we had prior to 30 June and when we did 30 June, we didn't have enough cash in the bank to be able to restrict everything that I wanted to restrict due to some very large grant debtors that are still outstanding in the amount of 2.7 million. So what we've got is basically some of our local road community infrastructure grants that we've received. We've spent most of the grant, but the annual reporting is not due until the 31st of October. So we won't receive the next lot of funding until they receive the final reports, annual reports. So with that, with the local road community infrastructure, there's a bit over $500,000 there. Similar with the fixed and local roads, we've got about 300,000 in there. We were notified that we were successful with the flood damage work for the November emergency works. So we had to bring that income to account, and that was 681,000. That's now been received, so that's in our bank account. And we, due to the Warren Airport waiting on the next milestone, which is basically the terminal building, we're still waiting about $800,000 from there. So when you add all them up, comes out to $2.7 million, which are what we call highly liquid. They're coming from the government departments. If they go broke, then we'll probably go broke not far after. So I think they're pretty liquid. So I had to, what I basically done was reduce the infrastructure replacement reserve by $2 million as at the 30th of June, so only put in 200,000, and then 1st of July, so we start off, we know where we are, put the 2 million back into it again to bring it up to $2.2 million. So that's the reason for the variance.
Anyone have any? So these are internally restricted funds. So these are a resolution of council. We've chosen to do this. There are externally restricted funds which pertain to fags, roads, etc.
Sorry, the fags grant is internally restricted.
We can do, yes.
Yeah, but it was received in advance, so we don't really want to spend it. Didn't want to spend it prior to. But we had external restrictions of 6.6 million. And that's 6.6 million made up of water and sewer funds, domestic waste, and then all of our unspent grants that we've got, which is quite significant as well. So our cash, available cash at the end of the year was 12.77 million. So not a difficult product, but we can't restrict internally unless we actually have the cash. So, that's fine.
Thank you for that explanation. Any comments, questions regarding those internally restricted funds? Being nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 5, excuse me, Management Finance Administration report, that being the financial report for the year ended 30th of June 2022. So I'm happy to move that recommendation, which involves really the signing off of the accounts.
So move, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Taylor. Second, councillor Walker. Councillor Taylor.
Mr Mayor, recommendation for the forms.
Yes, certainly. The Managed Finance Group Administration brought to my attention that there is a difference between the report and who will actually be signing off. So just
Yeah, through the Mayor, I had our Deputy Mayor Councillor, Derek, as the other councillor signing off, but, as action today, I actually put, Councillor Taylor in, and he was quite willing to sign off on them, so. Yeah, the actual signing of the reports, when you go and read them, when they've been audited, which are being currently audited at the moment, we'll have Councillor Taylor, Councillor Derek.
thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the financial report that the 2022 budget which have completed them? Nothing further, we'll vote all those in favour, against, carried. Mindful of the time, how are we situated, councillors? Do we need a break?
Yep.
Yes. Thank you. We'll adjourn the meeting then. Thanks, council. We'll now resume our ordinary meeting for the month of August. Moving to the report to the divisional manager of engineering resources. The first of those being the works progress report pertaining to roads. Someone happy to move the information to be received and noted in the report. Thank you, Councillor Kinsey. Second, Councillor McCloskey. Councillor Kinsey.
Mr Mayor, the recommendation, please, Mr Mayor. What going on?
Within the confines of the weather that we're having, Councillor Kinsey, yes.
I did query the pay lines are patching now, and that's what's been done. Trucks in trouble at the moment, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
Something wrong with it electronically, they're trying to fix up.
This is with the second patching truck.
Yeah, because there's grade crew people who are able to go on it, and there's not too much.
Through, so just a couple of things.
Yes.
On page 2, top of page 2, where we've got, with regards to the works progress reports for the road, we've got the top of the road and the Colatrenga road, and we've got grading. Given they're both sealed roads, should that not be shoulder grading? Is that not right?
I don't think the engineering services. Councillor Boston.
Three, Mr Mayor, that's right.
Yep. Also then, you go across to page 4, we've got the same circumstance again for grading crew 1 in terms of the works that are proposed to happen on Thornton Road, maintenance grade, given that's all sealed, would that be shoulder grading there as well?
Mr Mayor. What road, sorry?
Thornton Road?
Yeah, okay, so it's, this one here, which has been sealed in the last few years, so, it would be sold in my view, Councillor McCloskey, we just need, I think we need, from what you're suggesting, Councillor McCloskey, is that just some tidying up on.
Oh, that's all, yeah, terminology to grading,
yes.
Yeah, reference to the maintenance grading of an unsealed road, or shoulder grading of a sealed road. And just another one, if I can, on page 5, in the gravel regime, we've got $200,000 listed for both the Old Warren Road and all the Old Warren Road and the Canterbury Road. Back previous in the paper, there was a recommendation from the Roads Committee to Council that preference be given to resheeting of local roads that are already of a gravel loan condition. The Canterbury Road, where it's still here, it doesn't fall, I believe, into that category. It's a natural surface road.
So we need some clarity. The Roads Committee recommendation is that those roads that have been gravel treated,
Preference to be done as opposed to spending money on roads that aren't done at the expense of maintaining what is currently the gravel loan sheeted network.
Understand what you're saying?
Through Mr Mayor. in this regard, we follow the recommendations from the first copy.
So, am I to believe that that potentially will be taken out of there?
Yeah.
Yeah. The road committee meeting would have taken place after this was submitted in terms of putting it in the business paper. I would suggest that, yes, correct. Yeah. So therefore, that would be amended as a result.
Mr Mayor, council might have gone against the roads committee's recommendation.
I would have said anything if they didn't adopt that recommendation.
So it would have been very presumptuous of us that, we had.
Councillor Whiteman.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's great to see the banter continuing, but there was possibly a reason that Canberra came to the notice of the engineering department. I think it might have had something to do with Ningen Mail Service.
Thank you. None believes so.
Yeah,
The roads committee has made a decision and
that fact was discussed.
Yep.
There was a lot of facts discussed over 2.5 to 3 hours.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 1, provisional manager of engineering service report regarding roads? The question I would have too is regarding the road. The traffic counters have been in place for a very long time. What is our normal time frame for leaving the road counters in place? The traffic counters, what I meant. I'm deferring that to the general manager, I think, like that.
Oh, there's about, out of the 18 locations, about 4 or 5 that move around, the rest stay where they are, I believe.
Okay, so we're leaving them there for 7 months.
For the whole time. For the whole, about 11 out of the 18,
Staying.
between 4 and 5 get moved around,
Okay.
I believe.
Thank you.
That's why the map that used to be there, where's the map? That's why they're marked on that map, because some of them are actually almost like semi-permanent.
Okay. Yep. It's fine. I just wasn't completely au fait with the reason. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the roads report, item 1 of the division manager engineering services report? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against, carried. Moving on to item 2, the division manager engineering services report pertaining to team services. Again, someone happy to move that the information received and noted? Councillor Jackson, thank you. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Jackson.
I have no questions.
Any further questions, comments regarding, or any comments, questions regarding the item 2, the division manager engineering services report? Sorry, Councillor Bosky.
Through you, Mr Mayor, my question. On page 19, given that there was reference made earlier in general business re-hydrants and the recent fire in Glen Street, I'm assuming they're relating to, notwithstanding the fire that was over in Garden Avenue earlier in the piece. And I mentioned it 2 meetings ago after the fire in Raven Garden Avenue with reference to where we've got hydrants, we've got an action that's done as required, as opposed to potentially having a regimented inspection regime done, so that we are proactive to circumstances rather than reactive to circumstances. For one of the better descriptions, we're going to get burnt.
Absolutely.
And I mentioned then that I believe that rather than done as required, we should have a regimented 6 monthly, 12 monthly maintenance inspection regime to address issues that are brought to us as a result, particularly with the fireys, when they go to situations and find that there's a problem that we should have accounted for, as opposed to them dealing with an emergency situation.
And take on board, you had made this very same point 2 meetings ago.
It might be saying that, Mr. Mayor, it is actually.
It is happening.
Regimented, proactive regimented audit program has been instigated.
So again, through you said, that comment done as required will change at some time down the track.
I would be assuming so, and perhaps need to make a mental note of that, Councillor McCloskey, that actually, the heading remains, the activity remains, but we see that has changed. Thank you. Sorry, again, sorry, yes,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, please. Again, with regard, on item 2, the bulk water meter reading per quarter, are the dates in each quarter correct, given that, am I to assume the first quarter is from the 1st to the 7th, 22 to the 31st to the 9th, 22, not 21, and then amended accordingly through the next 3 quarters?
The dates have been missed.
Yeah, no, I'm saying not missed, the dates need to be changed. Because
That's what I mean, the dates have been missed.
yes, not changed appropriately.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor McCloskey. Any further comments, questions regarding item 2, the Divisional Manager of Engineering Services report? Councillor Whiteley.
I'd just like to mention that a comment on the gentleman's email, that was a copied email to our website, re the appearance of the town last week. I think that should be conveyed to Parks and Gardens.
The Engineering Service will very gladly do that, I'm sure, if they haven't been already informed. It's only last week. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any further items, questions regarding Councillor Whiteley?
So I threw a good one, now I might throw a grenade. Obviously, we're going through a wet period where a lot of our staff can't do their jobs that they're supposed to be doing, or they're legitimate grading, like earth moving type jobs. I would like council, or I personally would like to make sure that there is maintenance type work that they can be productively used in when they're not under their active control. There is occasions when the public are aware of, and even I personally are aware of, guys not having anything to do, and obviously not having anything to do, and doesn't reflect good on them, and it certainly doesn't reflect good on the council as a whole.
So the question, Councillor Whiteley, is there a list of tasks that could be undertaken if the weather is not kind in the normal operations?
Yeah, my comment is to encourage the staff to facilitate that type of list.
There's lots of guideposts demonstrating.
Yeah.
There is some signs replacement. As soon as we get a second car patch in the traffic, that'll three people that and they're aware of visuals.
Yeah, that's probably what I meant through you, Mr. Mayor. The public perception.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Whiteley. Anything further on item 2? Nothing further. We'll put that all those in favour. Against carried. Moving on. Excuse me. On to item 3. Business Management Engineering Services report that pertaining to the fleet and the workshops. Someone happy to again remove the information received and noted. Councillor Walker, Councillor Whiteley, Councillor Walker.
I'm just having to move the recommendation.
Question, the tractor that was at the showdown racecourse that then was going to be used for flood pumping. And then we received information that it wasn't functioning, but it now appears to be satisfactory. Is that the upshot of all that?
That word's not guaranteed.
Not guaranteed, yeah, right, okay. Because that is to be traded at some stage soon on a John Deere.
Hopefully within a month.
Right. Is it still working, is it in use at the moment?
I believe so.
And it's, okay.
It's costing it.
Yes, that's what I'm meaning. Not too much stress on it. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Whiteley, then Councillor Hopkins, sorry.
I just, we're having a date, to facilitate the next plant meeting, we haven't got a date set.
It'll be early to mid-October. Because you need a week of analysis for your tenders and lease one, which closes, the trucks and trailers close, I think, the 29th of September. Yeah.
So, mid-October, yeah.
Probably.
Thank you.
And Councillor McCloskey.
Through Mr. Mayor, Michael. Page 27, I note a couple of vehicles, a Toyota Fortuner and a Toyota Hilux Spin Cab, cleaned and washed and returned to the office. Are they fleet vehicles utilised by staff? And if they are, why aren't the staff washing and cleaning their own vehicles?
Because they were no longer owned by a staff member and was probably being prepared for a new staff member to take over.
Under normal circumstances?
No, what happened was that the Fortuna was left under a tree that there were lots of birds in the tree, and I organised it to be cleaned in preparation for the infrastructure project manager to take it over. That's unfortunately, it was just the birds got
Okay, thanks for you, Steve. I know a comment the general manager just made with regards to the tractor that broke down to the pump. He may have stated that the work wasn't guaranteed. But are you saying the work that was done to repair it is not guaranteed in terms of?
No, it's not guaranteed that the engine isn't damaged.
So where do we stand, given that it's potentially got a changeover in a month's time for a new tractor, and no guarantee on the status of the tractor, the resale trade?
I just stated the obvious, that we don't know whether the engine's damaged or not, and we're hoping that it's not. We believe the engine shut down before it got too hot, but we're not 100% guaranteed that happened. The tractor's needed because it needs to have a pump on the back. Not everyone's tractor is available around town to replace it. It's not being traded, it'll be sold.
Yeah, no, I realise that. Yeah. Right, the bit we sell it, someone buys it, 2 months down the track.
It's as is.
Yeah. Might be as is, but trust me. It might be as is, yeah.
No, I'm taking Councillor McCloskey, thank you.
You know, the nature of people.
Any further comments, questions regarding item 3, the fleet and merchant report? Nothing further, put that all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 1 of the Manager of Health and Development's report, first of those being the development application approvals. Someone happy to move that Very pleasing, development application approval. Thank you, councillor, it's all over, councillor Bruce and councillor Walker. Thank you.
A question to the manager of health and development services. Why was there a stop clock in part of the application?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah. Because it's of a commercial nature, and not a residential nature, there's certain fire parameters associated with that building. I wasn't satisfied that the information that they provided to council had met those requirements, and I required additional information. And until that additional information was provided, I wasn't in a position to approve that application.
Was that through, was that through the LHD?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was through the applicant. Yeah.
Councillor Walker.
Mr. Mayor, given the climatic conditions at the moment, but is there a date of finishing this project? Have they given you any idea?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I have no indication of commencement or completion.
Oh, not even okay. Thank you.
Our understanding though is they are they're modular construction, is that correct? So,
Yes.
yeah, so it might be, once some foundations of some kind in place, it might be that.
Yeah, should be pretty speedy, yes.
Right, just through you, I believe we've been told at the Health Council it's November. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 1 of the Manager of Health and Development's report, the development application? Nothing further, put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Item 2, works progress reports. Control of the Health and Development Manager. Someone happy to remove item 2, that the information be received and noted. Councillor Jackson, thank you. Second. Councillor Walker, Councillor Jackson.
Yes, just moving that it be received and noted.
Thank you. Any further on item 2? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 3, the Environment and Waterways Alliance Agreement. Recommendation, someone can move information received and noted. Councillor Kinsley, thank you. Second. Councillor Bruce, thank you. Councillor Kinsley.
Very recommendation, Mr. Moss.
Just a question for the Manager of Health and Development. So we reading, it's not in the report there, but in the letter. So we have a financial commitment. I just need to be clear. Is it $2,000 plus another 2.5? Is that what?
That's correct.
So it's $4,500.
That's correct, yes.
I think we perhaps need to see that in the information about a financial implication. There is a cost for doing these things. Councillors just noting that. I think we need to be very awareness. There are some good things that come out of this alliance, but we just need to be aware that it sort of comes with the cost. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll just ask the Manager of Health and Development, have we had a state of the environment report before?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, one's released every 2 years, I believe. Yeah. Yep. So they contact us for data, and they do a data collation, and then it's released.
That's what I'm asking through Mr. Mayor, is it worthwhile information? I don't know if we've seen one, but you read it and thought it was useful and worthwhile?
It's a legislative requirement under the Local Government Act.
So you have to get one?
Yes.
Otherwise, we're writing it ourselves.
Yeah.
And we,
contained within the annual report.
it is, we do get them every year, yeah. I wasn't aware of the timeframe, but we do get them. Yes. Any further comments, questions regarding item 3, Management Health Development Report? Further, then all those in favour? Yes, carried. Item 4, request for donation of heritage items from Visitor Information Centre to the Museum and Gallery Association. Someone having to move that, Councillor Whiteley, second Councillor Taylor, Councillor Whiteley.
This, through you, Mr. Mayor, was presented to the last council meeting where you and our general manager weren't out. There was problems related to gifting something to that might be moved on out of the village. The town itself wouldn't come under control. Reading this report, and the comment I did have discussions over the constitution of the Historical Society and with Mr. Fred Green, and whilst I haven't seen the constitution and read it myself, he assures me that anything donated or loaned to the new museum across the road can't be given away or sold away out of the village.
Give that clarification. Councillor Taylor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question. Why part 2 of the recommendation says just one of the cross section of the river gum? Why did you put the pictures of the other pieces of river gum in there? Are they going as well, or it's just that one that's on the pedestal?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's only one. So the original report presented the labelled slab that we currently have in our possession, and then the report has further reported of what we have available in storage. So the proposal is to donate one from storage.
Mayor, the one that's attachment 2 is ours, will remain ours, but may end up at the Visitor Information Centre. New Visitor Information Centre.
So that's not the one going to historical. It's
One of the slabs that's in the
just one of the slabs. Right?
Yeah. Probably the top one.
What would that be? Any further? Sorry, Councillor Jackson.
And did we get to determine the ownership of the telephone collection of the mounted, in particular the mounted wall-mounted telephone? We know the council owns that, and so they can therefore donate it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my research was that there was no objection of the donation of those items to the museum. There was no forecast. I don't believe that the donators are still alive as such. So the general intention of those items, the consensus was that they believe that the intention would still be upheld of those items, and there would be no objection to donating.
So through Mr. Mayor, does that mean we know who donated them?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd have to go back through my notes when I spoke with Pat Irving. Yeah, I spoke with Pat Irving about it, and yeah, I'd have to go back through my notes. I just can't recall offhand, sorry.
That would have to be the check. I mean, they are ours. But we have to be subtle.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding item 4? Manager Health and Development's report. Nothing, oh, sorry, Councillor Jackson.
I just want to confirm that the museum are happy to accept that others, has this been put to them, they said, yes, we would like these things, or are they expecting to get the slab of the labels on it all?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I haven't given them indication, of that we may not be gifting them the original slab, and then there may be a slab in storage. I haven't indicated that to them yet.
If they don't want it, it stays in storage. It'd be a very interesting project for them to do something very similar with that slab.
Yep. Second. Any further on item 4? Manager Health and Development's report? No, nothing further. With that, all those in favour? Okay, carry. Item 7, there are no notices of motion or questions with notice. We have no on item 8, no 9, there are no confidential matters. So therefore, all the meeting to close. Thank you for your attention.